This is TLC Elementary School, a place where teachers of kindergarten through 6th grade can find high-quality documentary programs chosen to inform and delight students. Use TLC Elementary School to complement your classroom lessons and to give students an up-close look at the world and the people around them. On this edition of TLC Elementary School, explore some amazing ways that technology works for us. First, find out how information gets from your fingertips onto the screen of a computer. Then, log on to the Internet and learn what goes into making a website. Then learn how computerized weather forecasting has made it much easier to avoid getting stuck in the rain. And finally, meet the scientists who are making some absolutely fantastic robots. Segment 1. Computers.
Computers are part of everyday life. They do a lot of things. They can give you money from a bank or make a report. Computers process information and make calculations quickly and precisely. But computers today are very different from the first computers. 50 years ago, in 1946, two engineers at the University of Pennsylvania built the first general-purpose digital computer called the ENIAC. This giant adding machine was built out of 18,000 vacuum tubes and weighed 30 tons. It was built to make fast calculations for artillery fire in World War II. It cost $8 million and could add hundreds of numbers per second. But to do something other than add, the machine had to be reconnected. So John von Neumann, a Princeton mathematician, figured out a way to tell the computer to do different types of problems without rewiring. He put the instructions in the memory of the machine. Just 5 years later, a more advanced computer was made called the UNIVAC. It accurately counted over 50 million ballots in the 1952 U.S. presidential election. Eisenhower was determined the winner merely 45 minutes after the polls closed. The way a computer works is it chops everything, words, pictures, and information into chunks and converts it to numbers. The numbers are made of ones and zeros. Anything can be written in different combinations of zeros and ones. Pictures are made of tiny blocks of light. Each block is a number that stands for the amount of red, green, and blue in the picture. Given the right combination, the computer can represent almost anything. Until 1947, computers used tiny vacuum tubes to process information. Inside each tube was a current. When it flowed, it was a 1. When it stopped, it was a 0. But then came transistors. They were smaller and more reliable than vacuum tubes. Nearly 20 years later, the computer's transistors were in one tiny chip. By using the keyboard, screen, and mouse, you are connected to the inner workings of the computer. The brain of the computer is the Central Processing Unit, or CPU. It adds and subtracts and processes data. When you press a key on the keyboard, it sends a signal to the ROM BIOS chip, or the read-only memory basic input-output system. This chip translates information from the keyboard into computer language, that is zeros and ones. Then the information is sent to the CPU. Its job is to put words, pictures, and symbols on the screen. This information comes from RAM, or Random Access Memory. RAM is temporary memory used to process data, but it disappears when the computer is turned off. ROM, or read-only memory, is permanent memory. It comes from information on a disk drive.
Text, and I'll see what I can skip so we can get through.
Douglas Engelbart was the inventor of the first mouse.
Let me go back to that view.
The easiest way to communicate with the computer is to use a mouse.
I don't know why we call it a mouse. Sometimes I apologize. It started that way, and we never did change it.
It's an interesting thing, but sometimes it almost irritates me that people say, oh, you've done the mouse, and it's just one little piece of all the things I've been trying to do, but all right, it's something everybody sees and knows. And how it came about is pretty straightforward. This funny-looking device was the world's first mouse. It was made of wood. The inside was filled with this metal things, and the major interesting parts were these two wheels, one of which is a horizontal wheel and the other is a vertical. If you move sideways, it's one wheel does the rolling and the other does the sliding.
The mouse we know today rolls on a ball that turns two slotted wheels. As the wheels turn, light shines through the slots and produces an electric signal. This signal tells the computer the cursor's new position. Computers have improved our lives. They have changed the way we live, work, and play.
Segment 2. Internet.
Have you ever wondered what the Internet is? Well, the Internet is a collection of millions of computers around the world that are connected to each other.
The Internet is a community of people who can talk to each other electronically.
It allows people to send information back and forth quickly.
So anybody who's sitting at any machine on the Internet can talk to the other machines.
People have created electronic websites that you can visit to find out about anything that interests you.
They can share fantastic ideas. They can share ordinary ideas.
You can even create your own website for people everywhere to look at.
Well, it's really fun because you can find information about anything that you want there as long as you know how to search through it.
You can play games. You can watch video. You can listen to music.
It's a fun place to explore.
It allows you to communicate with anybody, anywhere.
But I think that what makes it the most exciting is that you don't have to wait. It's right there all the time. People can go there with a click of a button.
When the Internet was first created, it had a specific purpose: networking. It started in 1968 as a military project called the ARPANET, and it was designed so that people could send information quickly to each other through their computers, even if there was a nuclear war. Douglas Engelbart, a computer scientist who worked on this project, remembers receiving the first electronic messages ever sent between computers.
We wired up my computer in as the second one to be connected into the ARPANET, which went on to evolve into the Internet, which is really kind of exciting to think about with all the millions that are on there now. I was number 2, my computer was. And you really can't have a network if you have only one, so that's about as early as you can get into a network.
A network is a group of computers that are connected to each other. Most offices and schools have networks, but the ARPANET researchers thought it would be more useful to find a way to connect lots of networks and even home computers into one large system. We now call this system the Internet. There are different ways to connect computers, but the most common way is through the telephone lines, with a device called a modem. A modem takes information from your computer and turns it into a signal that can travel through the telephone lines.
A modem is a piece of hardware that goes into the machine, which allows the signal that goes through the telephone lines to be converted into something that your computer can understand.
So all the computers that are attached to each other through modems and telephone lines, or other ways, make up the Internet. One of the things that the internet allows you to do is write letters, called email, to other people with computers that are on the internet.
Email is actually text files that get sent from one person to another through the internet. First of all, you have to have an email account, which you can get sometimes through your school or through a service provider, and your friend would also have to have that. And you would also need to have a connection to the internet. But once you have those things, all you need to know is their email address, and you can just send the email right off to them.
An email address is an address that you would give to a friend with whom you would like to share electronic mail, send messages at an instant.
The internet also allows you to search through websites that people have made for you to see.
Well, a website is a place where someone or a group of people share information and resources. So whatever they know or they enjoy, they put a site up so that they can share it with everyone else.
Lots of different people have websites. Big universities have websites. Elementary schools have websites. Maybe your school has a website. You could have your personal website.
When you are logged on or connected to the internet and your computer is receiving information like a website from another computer, your computer is called a client machine.
The internet works like this. There are clients and servers. So when you're browsing the web, you're on a client machine, and your client sends requests to the server machine.
A server machine is designed so that many computers have access to the information on it at the same time. So you could be looking at a website at the same time as many other people.
So basically, when you load a web page, you're asking the server to send you some information back.
And each server on the internet has an address.
Well, two computers on the internet can talk to each other. They have to first know where the other one is. So you're going to need to know the address of the other computer.
For example, if you want to go see what Discovery Channel School has available for kids, when you're browsing the internet, at the top of your browser, there'll be a word that might say location with a space for you to fill in. And that's where you type in the address of the website to which you would like to go.
If you are interested in the information on a particular website, you type in the address and your computer will transfer the information from the server with that address so you can see it. Many businesses have websites. You can check the prices at the local grocery store or see the latest art exhibits at a local gallery. You can join groups and clubs. You can even see previews of certain TV shows. The Hassel family visits the internet almost every night. Jim has taught his daughter, Annie, how to use the internet, and she often spends time finding and exploring the websites that interest her. With a click of a button, she is transported around the world or next door to visit different websites. She can do research about almost anything. Some websites are simple, and some are pretty complicated. But anyone can make a website if they have something they want to share with the rest of the world.
To make a website, you have to, 1, know the purpose of your website, and 2, know the audience of your website.
This is the website of Elise. She is 6 years old. She uses this website to keep in touch with her relatives on the west coast of Canada and friends that she has in Scotland.
If the purpose of your website is to share things about yourself with your friends, your relatives, your grandma calls, wants to know what's going on in your life. So you think to yourself possibly that you want to build a website that is a museum of you.
Elise's website tells people all about her. She has a page called Growing Up, and she has posted pictures for her grandparents to see.
You can post pictures that you're drawing.
In another part of the website, Elise has put some of her own artwork.
You can post maybe some audio recording of some of your favorite music or something like that.
One thing that Elise likes is singing, and so she recorded a song called Big Dreams and put that on her website as well.
It would take a while probably for you to gather all of the information that you want to put on your page, and it'll take a lot of planning on your part.
The first thing that you want to figure out, of course, is what's going to be on the site. The second thing that you need to do is put them into a format that a computer can understand. And then you'll put them onto the web server.
Good websites represent personality, have their own flair. You like to go to different websites because they have something special to offer.
So in traditional mediums, like in a book, you have a table of contents, so it gives you a list of all the things that you can go to see.
A website is different from a book because you can include links.
A link or hot link is what you see in a web page that lets you go from one page to another.
A link is a word or picture that you can click on that will take you to another page. On most web pages, you can tell if there's a link because your cursor changes as you move across it.
You just click right on those things and it takes you right to that section of the book.
Some websites have graphics that move on the screen called animation.
When we want to make an animation, what we have to be using is different frames. These frames, as you can see right here, each one of these is slightly different one from the other one.
To make graphics move, you have to make many pictures called frames that are each a little bit different from the others.
When they get combined all together into one piece, one after the other one in a certain amount of time frame, they basically become what we call an animation.
When they appear one after another, it looks as if they are moving.
And it's the final product.
You can also use a scanner to turn pictures into images on the computer that you can put on your website. But if you don't want to make your own website, you can spend time seeing what other people have made and writing letters to your friends through email.
It's right there, and you're directing it.
Have fun.
Segment 3, Computerized Weather Forecasting.
The weather affects our lives in many ways. Airlines depend on good weather to ensure a safe journey. Weather forecasts help planes avoid dangerous flying conditions. In an unexpected storm, even the largest, most advanced airplanes can be affected by the weather. Today, we count on accurate forecasts, and computers have improved the way we watch the weather. As forecasting has improved, there are fewer air, sea, and road accidents. Out of all types of transportation, space travel needs the most accurate forecasting. Lightning can cause great damage to space vehicles taking off in bad weather. That is why the space shuttle liftoff is canceled if there's any chance of a thunderstorm within 100 miles. But how do meteorologists, people who study the weather, find out if there's going to be a storm? They start by collecting information about the weather. They find out what the air and sea temperature is, how fast the wind is blowing, and how much rain is falling. Every piece of information about the weather can help meteorologists predict what the weather will do next. To help keep track of all the information, the world is divided into a grid. Meteorologists all over the world help gather weather information. Every morning at 8 o'clock, meteorologist Chris Strong comes to this weather station. Along with thousands of other meteorologists around the world, it is his job to release weather balloons that gather information about the weather. A miniature weather station is attached to the balloon. Chris checks in with the Weather Service to find out when he can release his balloon.
This is the Weather Service. Okay to release a balloon in 1 minute. Okay.
All of the meteorologists around the world must release their balloons at exactly the same time. The weather balloon will transmit information back down to the computer at the weather station. The balloon will rise 10 miles high, recording wind speed, humidity, and temperature in different layers of the atmosphere. But meteorologists need more information to make accurate weather forecasts. They rely on satellites to get their jobs done. Satellites keep a daily weather watch on the world. Sometimes they monitor clouds to track rain and wind, and sometimes they map wave patterns to find wind speeds over the oceans. Satellites beam down their data every 15 minutes, providing meteorologists with constant updates about the weather. But that's not all of the information that meteorologists gather. To get the most accurate forecast, information is also gathered from thousands of weather stations on Earth. These local stations monitor rainfall using radar. The sensitive instruments used by the forecasters can detect small showers over 100 miles away. But good forecasts still rely on traditional weather instruments, such as rain gauges, anemometers, and weather vanes. And these have to be read every hour on the hour at weather stations all over the world. This is a rain gauge. It records rainfall. This is an anemometer. It measures wind speed. And this is a weather vane that plots wind direction. All of the information that is gathered by weather balloons, satellites, and weather stations is too much for meteorologists to work with. They need the help of a computer. In fact, it is called a supercomputer. It's the most powerful computer in the world. This is the Cray C916 supercomputer at the National Meteorological Center in Camp Springs, Maryland. The Cray makes 6 billion calculations in 1 second. It would take a person 420 years to do the same. Pre-programmed into its memory are the laws of physics. All of the information about the weather comes to this supercomputer. It uses weather information to give 24-hour, 3-day, and 5-day forecasts. All this work can be done in less than 1 hour. But even the world's most powerful computer can't give the most accurate forecast. It's the meteorologists who make the predictions. A team of meteorologists examines the computer's predictions. Then they use their own experience to come up with a weather forecast. Each team specializes in predictions for different parts of the world. The team is watching storms brewing in the Pacific. The computer shows 2 storms heading towards the city of Manila in the Philippines, a country in the southwest Pacific Ocean. The forecasters can see the winds are blowing up to 40 miles an hour. The danger is that the sea is warm, with the surface temperatures around 80 degrees. The conditions are likely to cause a typhoon, a storm with high winds and heavy rains. But it's a huge responsibility for a weather team to issue typhoon warnings. The people of the Philippines could be panicked, and if the typhoon does not happen, the forecaster's credibility is at stake. So they have to plot accurate courses for the storms, which must include predictions for both wind speed and rainfall.
That's what we had yesterday.
It's time to make up their minds. The forecasters agree. The Pacific storms are growing stronger. They issue a weather map with locations of where a typhoon might hit. Meteorologists around the world are alerted. Valerie Voss, a CNN meteorologist, is running out of time. Her international weather forecast is due for broadcast in 5 minutes. Those mid-Pacific storms are getting bigger. News just in from Guam, a country in the path of the typhoon, shows wind speeds growing stronger. The tropical storms are reaching typhoon force, and they've been given names, Teresa and Vern. The northern Philippines have been put on alert to expect Typhoon Teresa within 72 hours. It will bring winds blowing at 74 miles an hour and massive downpours.
Right now we have the forecast into Wednesday for Asia.
Valerie gives her forecast and warns the people of the Philippines to prepare for the typhoon about to hit.
Storms in the western Pacific. Teresa is intensifying and will be near typhoon strength at forecast time. It's moving in the general direction.
Today, we have a better understanding of the weather and the conditions that cause it, thanks to meteorologists and their tools.
Segment 4, Fantastic Robots.
People are amazing machines. They can run, jump, flip, and move effortlessly through the air. The hands can move and react fast and accurately. The body is flexible and well balanced. That's why scientists are studying how people move in order to build some fantastic robots.
Wait a minute. You're trying to tell me that these gymnasts learning how to do flips have something in common with robots?
They have a lot in common with robots. Studying the way people move is the first step to building fantastic robots. It's not magic, it's science, and it all starts with gravity.
Gravity? What does gravity have to do with robots?
We all have a center of gravity, which is the point on our bodies that we use to balance ourselves.
It's the center of the mass of the object. Whether it's me or a chair or a table, it has a center of its mass. It also changes. As I change my shape, as I move, the center of gravity slightly shifts.
What if I wanted to stand on my hands? What would happen to my center of gravity?
You keep your center of gravity right over your hands, directly over your hands. That way you can hold the balance, and that way you don't fall over. This is actually natural if you do it all the time.
Whether you're upside down, in the air, or on the ground, your center of gravity is important.
But I still don't understand what this has to do with robots.
Here at the Leg Lab at MIT, scientists are studying how gravity works on the human body, so they can make robots that will do some of the same amazing things we can.
You mean, like flip through the air?
Exactly. This machine is used to figure out how human bodies move when they flip in the air.
That was a good one. It did about 3.5 stable somersaults, rotating about the side-to-side axis, and it didn't do any twisting while it was in the air.
This is a wooden gymnast, and you can see that when it flips, its arms naturally move up and down to keep it balanced. The machine shows scientists that our bodies are designed to balance themselves.
So the robot doesn't need a brain to stay balanced? It does it on its own?
Well, the balance is built into the design of the robot, but it still needs a brain, just like we do.
We make these machines so that the hips attach close to the center of gravity, and it makes it so that the machine is more likely to balance on its own.
What's Dr. Plater doing to this robot?
This robot is getting a hip replacement.
This will probably leak out some fluid. Here we go. Here's a little robot blood.
It's not really blood, it's hydraulic fluid, and that's what allows the hips to move. And it's got microchips for brains to control the movement. And it's specially designed to balance like a human. Without balance, we can't stand up, and neither can a robot.
But how does the robot run?
Well, there's two parts. There's a bouncing part, like this, and there's a balancing part, like this. For our robots, we build springs into the legs that cause them to bounce pretty much the way this ball bounces on the ground. But in order for the robot not to tip over while it's doing this, it has to balance.
Is this how we balance when we run?
If you think about how a person works when they're running, the body flies through the air, we put our foot out in front of us, and our body travels over the foot until we fly into the air again with the body in front of the foot. And the whole idea is to put my foot about halfway along the path that my body's going to travel. So if you think about what path the body moves on while it's over the foot is underneath the middle of that path, and therefore it stays balanced.
Scientists learned from watching gymnasts that in order to do a forward somersault like this, you need some energy. The energy of a trampoline or the energy of a running start.
And so we did need a minimum amount of speed. We needed it to run about 1 meter per second in order to get it to do a front somersault.
And once they got it to run, the rest is history.
It does what I call a hurdle step, which is what people do before they do a front somersault, and then it lands on both feet and thrusts as hard as it can and rotates its upper body and then tucks while it's in the air.
Wow, that's amazing.
If you think this is amazing, engineers have developed another extraordinary robot. that is also designed like the human body.
Like what?
Like the arm, which is modeled after a human arm, and its amazing ability to catch and throw a ball.
There are lots of different patterns, and it's just a matter of building it up. Well, when you're juggling, of course, the hand throws the ball, the eye sees the ball, sees what mistake was made, and the brain then makes the correction, takes information and computes, and tells the hand where to go. And it's a constant feedback where you have the eye seeing, the brain computing where it's going to come, the eye sees it, the brain computes, the hand throws, and that's juggling in a nutshell.
Can this robot really juggle?
Not exactly, but making a robotic arm that can see and think and move as fast as a human is a huge task for scientists. The arm was taught to catch and throw a ball by Dr. Slatine.
Suppose that the arm is trying to catch this ball. The cameras keep centered on the ball. So here we see what the cameras see. And here we see where the computer thinks the ball is. As we move the ball, the cameras are going to move and follow it. And they can follow it reasonably well up to reasonably high speeds. And so, for instance, you can do things like this, and it will still follow the ball.
So the cameras are like eyes for the robot?
They allow the computer to calculate the exact position of the ball and its distance from the robot.
And the computer is the brain of the robot.
When the ball is thrown, the computer figures out the direction of the throw and where to position its arm in order to catch it.
In the half second it takes to catch the ball, you have to figure out that a ball is coming. Where is it coming from? Start positioning the arm, start closing the gripper so that you can close the gripper on the ball.
What if you throw the arm something really heavy?
When you're catching an object, it may be this ball or it may be something heavier, and you want to be able to grab it, and as you grab it, very quickly adapt to how heavy it is, so that if it happens to be very heavy, you don't just drop on the floor.
What would happen if you took this robot and put the video cameras on its head so it could see, the computer in its brain so it could think, and then an arm on each side of its body? Could you make a robot that was even more like a human being?
Maybe, but you'd have to know a whole lot about the human body first.
This is TLC Elementary School, a place where teachers of kindergarten through 6th grade can find high-quality documentary programs chosen to inform and delight students. Use TLC Elementary School to complement your classroom lessons and to give students an up-close look at the world and the people around them. On this edition of TLC Elementary School, explore some amazing ways that technology works for us. First, examine the mysteries of magnetism and learn how it affects our everyday lives. Then, travel behind the screen and find out how television works. Finally, discover the many uses of satellites and see how these orbiting machines have changed our life on Earth. Segment 1. Magnetism.
Magnetism is something that we don't often think about, but in our houses, there are magnets everywhere. Electricity is created by magnets. The television picture is made by magnetic control. Magnets seal the refrigerator door. If somehow the laws of physics changed so there was no magnetism, the world as we know it would be completely different. We wouldn't have the kind of telephones, or clocks, or televisions that we know, and we wouldn't even have light. Since the universe was created, magnetism has been a force so powerful and so fundamental, nothing in our world would exist without it, not even us. When humans first discovered magnetism long ago, it seemed like magic. It was a dark stone that attracted iron with an invisible force. According to ancient Greek legend, a shepherd noticed that the iron nails in his boots stuck to these magic stones as he walked across them. This stone was called a lodestone. Lodestone is a natural magnet. This means that it is not made by people. The Greeks found deposits of it in the province of Magnesia, and that's how magnets got their name. Long ago, magnets like the lodestone were thought to have magical powers. Hippocrates, a doctor who lived more than 2,000 years ago, thought the lodestone could heal people. In the Middle Ages, others believed it could cure heart disease. Sailors told miraculous tales of ships that sunk when huge lodestone mountains pulled all the nails from their hulls. By 1269, over 700 years ago, Petrus Peregrinus began to explain this magic. He found that all lodestone, if allowed to spin freely, would point in the same direction, which we now call north.
This rock has some very
He also showed that the rock could be used to make an ordinary iron needle into a magnet, a man-made magnet. The compass is a magnetized iron needle that is allowed to spin freely. Like the lodestone, this magnetized iron also points north. Sailors no longer had to depend on the sun and stars to guide them, because the magnet in the compass showed them which direction they were going. In 1600, almost 400 years ago, William Gilbert found that a magnetized needle not only pointed north, but also slanted down. The needle seemed to be reaching for something. For Gilbert, this meant that the Earth was a giant magnet. He was right.
The needle of a compass points in a north-south direction, in line with the Earth's magnetic field. The end of the needle which points north is marked capital N for north-seeking, and the south-pointing end is marked capital S for south-seeking.
It's easier to understand how a magnet works when we look at the atom. Inside all the things we can see are tiny atoms that we cannot see. These atoms consist of two major parts, the nucleus in the center and the electrons that circle around it. In each atom, the moving electrons create a magnetic field. This field has two poles, a north pole and a south pole. Here they are colored red and white so that you can see them. When the poles of these atoms are lined up, the entire material becomes a magnet that also has a magnetic field with a north and a south pole.
A little bit more. Oh, look at that. You can put a little bit more and then go all the way down here at this end.
When you sprinkle iron filings over a bar magnet, the filings line up so you can see the effects of the magnetic field.
May I borrow a little few here? Put a little bit more down here.
In England, Michael Faraday's understanding of magnetism brought about a technical revolution during the 19th century. He showed that electricity is made by moving a magnet around a piece of wire. When electricity moves through the wire, it creates a magnetic field just like the bar magnet.
It's about ready
to begin.
Wait.
On your mark, get set, go!
These toy cars are made to move because the opposite poles of two magnets are pushed together. This also works if one of the magnetic fields comes from electricity. Faraday showed that a wire coil placed next to a magnet spins when electricity flows through it, because the two magnetic fields push each other away.
Here it is.
That was the beginning of the electric motor.
You got it. Yeah. We have a motor.
Together with electricity, magnetism has helped to create the world we know. Visit the set where a movie is being filmed, and magnets are everywhere.
Get ready, please. We are rolling.
Camera mark.
Action.
Magnets in the camera motor move the film. Earphones have magnets that help people to hear the sounds. Magnets in the TV help to make the picture we see. The computer uses magnets to store information on a disk. A magnet helps to record sounds. Even though we can't always see the magnets that surround us, we can still understand how magnetism works in our everyday world.
Segment 2, Television.
What is that?
Can you imagine a world without television? Today, we depend on television for a lot of information. It brings moving pictures and sounds from around the world into millions of homes everywhere. You can sit on the couch for hours and watch the world go by. But did you ever think about how that picture gets to your screen? The picture is actually an electronic signal, and it passes through lots of equipment before it gets to you. Let's take the Daytona 500 car race as an example. The CBS television network is covering this event, and it takes 31 cameras, 17 videotape recorders, 7 trailers stacked with high-tech broadcasting equipment, 141 people, including 3 producers, a director, and lots of people who operate the remote-controlled camera that looks like a giant mosquito. The cars at Daytona travel at speeds of 190 miles per hour, and the video signals of this race are traveling close to the speed of light at about 186,000 miles per second. Let's follow the video signal from the Daytona car race to your television screen at home. Better tighten your seatbelt. It's going to be a fast ride. There's a lot that happens in the cameras. First, the cameras capture the images of the race cars and transform them into electrons. Then the electrons are changed into microwaves, which can travel more easily. The microwaves are beamed from the cameras to an antenna, where they are changed back into electrons and fed down a wire to a TV set in the director's booth. The director chooses which camera shots will be used, and the signal is sent up to space to a satellite. The satellite reflects it back down to New York City to the network control room. This is where the network commercials are added. Then the signal is beamed back into space to another satellite, and then back down to local television stations across the country. The local station adds local commercials and broadcasts the signal to houses in that area. And that's how you get the Daytona 500 car race in your living room. Sound complicated? Well, television didn't start out quite this complicated. TV was first invented over 100 years ago by a German college student named Paul Gottlieb Nipkow. Mr. Nipkow built a mechanical scanning device using a metal disc with holes punched in it. As the disc turned, the holes moved across the scene. It was like spying on the world through a keyhole. The pulsing image was changed into a signal that could be sent short distances. By the 1930s, American engineers decided they needed something better. For one thing, a standard TV set would need a disc that was 14 feet across. That might be hard to fit in the average home. This is where an American farmer named Philo Farnsworth comes into the picture. He came up with a better system of television when he was just 14 years old. The idea came to him while he plowed a potato field. As he went back and forth with his plow, he realized that he had scanned the field with one unbroken line. This thought inspired him with the idea that television could work by scanning the picture electronically. Farnsworth kept at it, and in 1922 he came up with the system that would stay in place for the next 60 years. Television cameras use vacuum tubes to create video signals from images. This is how it works. The camera lens gathers the image of the scene. Inside, this light image is changed into a video signal. The signal is beamed onto the front of the signal plate. When light hits the screen, an electronic charge is left. Then a beam of electrons scans the charge from behind and creates a picture. (1945) was the end of World War II and the beginning of a television boom. People couldn't get enough of television. And then came a major improvement: color. In color TV cameras, the light streams through the lens and enters a prism which splits the light into 3 primary colors. The images are identical, except that one comes out of the prism in red, one in green, and one in blue. These images are scanned into electronic pulses and then combined to form a single color signal. This is the world's first color camera. It weighed half a ton. That's about the size of a baby elephant. A far cry from this. There is actually a small camera mounted in the pinhole in this woman's glasses. The camera is linked to the rest of the equipment in her purse. This setup might come in handy if, say, you wanted to spy on someone. Television technology continues to become more sophisticated. So what's in store for the future? Digital television. Up until recently, television has all been based on an analog signal. That is, made up of tones and shades. In order to make the analog system digital, a signal must be converted from tones and shades into ones and zeros. All the pictures and sounds are changed into numbers called digital codes. They are sent down a wire to a box on top of your TV set. Then your TV set translates the codes back into tones and shades, and you have your picture. Digital video has a lot of advantages. No snow, better, clearer pictures, and most of all, more information transmitted more easily. Television is still changing. Broadcast signals are not the only way we get television in our homes. These days, most of us have cable, and pretty soon we'll be able to get television through the phone lines. That's through a new technique called digital video compression. Digital video compression takes the video signal and, well, crunches it so that it can flow more easily through phone lines. When the signal reaches the other side, it expands back to its normal size. The benefit of digital video compression is that it will allow more television to come to you more quickly. And this is going to really change how much video can reach every home in the future. There will be lots of video, and people can choose exactly what they want to watch. It will work like this. Here's the Benson family of Albuquerque, New Mexico. They all have different interests. Chris Benson spends a lot of time on the computer playing games. His sister Callie loves horses and takes riding lessons. Their mother, Lynn, is a fabric artist. And Kirk Benson, the father, sings in a barbershop quartet. Their TV has a computer program that assigns a searcher, called an agent, to each family member. The agent knows each person's interests and what type of shows they'll enjoy. So, the agent checks the TV schedule and lets them know if there is something they might want to watch.
All right.
Chris, get my agent and find out about the quilt show in Phoenix next year.
Of course, deciding which agent the family will listen to is not an easy decision.
Yes.
You've already had your
Maybe something else. I'll play Bug.
But rest assured, television like this will be coming soon to a living room near you.
Segment 3. Many uses of satellites.
There's a revolution going on, and it's happening right under our noses, or rather right over our heads. It's a revolution of technology. It has changed the way we work, travel, and communicate. This revolution is being created by the satellite, the man-made robots that are circling Earth, sending information to us. It all started back in 1957 when the Russians launched Sputnik, the very first satellite. Now there are over 600 working satellites in orbit around Earth. And out of the 600, 24 of these are part of a group of satellites called Global Positioning Satellites, or GPS.
Pre-pass, and according to checklist 1-8, step 2. Step 3, this is an active support for satellite vehicle number 17, primary ground.
This looks like a drill, but it's not. It's a normal day. Time to juggle the satellite sailing into view over North America.
GPS is a space-based radio navigation system consisting of 24 satellites. They orbit at 10,900 nautical miles, and they transmit a signal to the users which allows them to determine their precise location on the surface of the Earth 24 hours a day, all weather.
Your GPS satellite is constantly sending down latitude and longitude and altitude to the people holding the GPS receivers. It's kind of like a big map. You can figure out where anything is, where you are, and how to get there. It was developed by the military as an aid to soldiers and their generals. It also allows the guys at the top to know exactly where every soldier is at all times. Generals can sit in their bunkers and fight wars like they're playing chess. A chip in the GPS receiver translates blips and beeps into a specific location on the surface of the Earth. No one ever has to be lost again, at least not once they have access to this system. The rest of us will have to get by with just remembering where we live. But you know what? GPS is also used by regular folks, even though you may not be aware. Airlines are looking to GPS for navigation and guidance, and if you fly the right airline, you too can have a peek at the progress of the flight. And that's not all. Satellite technology is popping up in all sorts of places. Because today's big cities are so dense and confusing, GPS maps are perfect for dispatching and tracking police cars, fire engines, and ambulances. For the rest of us who have trouble folding maps, never mind reading them, GPS is a miracle. Renting a car will never be the same. A computer on board is stored with a full range of local destinations. Corporate and personal, serious and silly. Choose one and the digital display shows you the most efficient route.
Please proceed to the highlighted route.
As if this weren't enough, GPS then rides shotgun, sitting right beside you, nudging you all the way.
Right turn ahead.
Your very own personal guide will take you wherever you want to go. How's that for service?
Slight left turn ahead.
Navigating a highway is one thing. Navigating at sea is a different kettle of fish. Mainly because the road never stays still. As a matter of fact, there isn't a road. All you have are currents and tides and winds.
Sailors used to have to navigate using compasses and by figuring out where they were in relation to the stars. But position is never a problem for GPS. The system has a long memory for things that go bump in the night: reefs, sandbars, wrecks, and it is a whiz at finding capes and jetties, sea coasts, and safe havens. For Charter Captain Anthony Rizzo and his fishing boat, The Natural, GPS is a lifesaver.
Well, GPS is made using a boat and fishing more efficient right across the spectrum. We are able to save fuel because we don't meander around. We know exactly where to go. We can catch more fish by being able to go back to the same exact locations time and again. And ultimately, it makes it much more easy for someone to get from point A to point B out on the water, where years ago you had to be an excellent seaman to do some of the things that now anyone that can function a GPS machine can do.
Nearby, scientists are using satellites to keep track of the endangered blue whale. By tracking them, they are able to better understand their migration patterns.
This is a satellite uplink receiver. It'll pick up the ultra-high frequency radio signals from our tags. It just issues a signal like that. That is a satellite signal. It was a very short signal, so it's probably from one of our location-only tags, or SD10s.
This is a sensor tag, and it measures the duration and depth of every dive. And at this end we have a vocalization sensor, and it will tell when whales vocalize and how deep they are at the time they do that. When the whale surfaces, this little stub here senses the surfacing, sends an Argos message up through this antenna to the satellite, and then the satellite links the information back down to an Earth station, and we recover it with a small PC and modem. We can do that by cellular phone right here on the boat.
Figuring out where the whales like to hang out isn't just a hobby. If we want to help this endangered species to thrive, we need to learn as much as we can about their behavior. And GPS allows us to do just that from a distance without getting in the way of their natural migration. And on the other side of the planet, satellites are being used in the wild. The Kenya Wildlife Service is in the business of protecting animals and the people who live around them. And the Save the Elephants Fund is now looking at the conservation of Africa's elephant population from a new angle, from outer space.
We've got some other satellite information that can also be helpful. And these images.
They're using satellite technology to keep tabs on the elephant population and to make sure that these majestic animals stay within the protected areas of the reserve. Can anyone imagine a world without all the gadgets made possible by satellites? All you have to do is think of a world without television, without faxes and cellular phones, without that instant communication that brings the world a little bit closer together every day.